At the end of last year, 2009, the Pennsylvania State Assembly passed a mandatory graduation exam law. Pennsylvania has become the 26th state in this country to require that a child passes a set of basic tests in order to get a high school diploma. Let me tell you a little bit about why we have mandatory graduation exams. First of all, you have to understand tests and the testing movement. You have to know why we have SAT tests and GRE tests and LSATs and MCATs and standardized tests and benchmarks. Why do we have all these tests? Why is America so test crazy? Let me tell you why. In a society where you do not have any interest in looking out for everybody equally, and when you have no interest in looking out for black people specifically, you have to come up with some sort of excuse to justify the lack of opportunity that you give to certain groups. Testing does just that. On the surface, testing looks neutral. On the surface, testing looks unbiased. On the surface, testing looks scientific. But the one thing you have to understand about science is there's nothing objective about it. Scientists study rarely with an intent to simply learn. Most of them study to confirm preconceived ideas they already have about the variables of interest. The reason why testing is so popular in America is because it is another medium through which black men can be kept out of the mainstream of society and ultimately done away with. By crushing the black man's opportunity at success in life, you destabilize the black family. Because either he's going to go to jail, where he can do his family no good, okay? Or he's going to have to get involved in some illegal activity, which could also lead to premature death. So how can a society keep black men from making it? You give them tests. And instead of saying that I'm treating you the way that I'm treating you because you're black, I can now say I'm treating you the way that I'm treating you because of your test score. Test scores are the new Jim Crow signs. Test scores do exactly what Jim Crow signs used to do, but as opposed to appearing racist, they look scientific. Let's talk more about these graduation exams. In the states that have mandatory graduation exams, the percentage of black children who are graduating is dismally low. Although some states have played with the statistics to look like the children are doing better, or they leave certain groups of black people out of those statistics, because I'm sure you know that you can lie with any group of numbers you have. Okay, because again, there's nothing scientific about science. The truth of the matter is black children are not graduating the way that they need to be in these 26 states. Now, what makes Pennsylvania the worst state to enact the mandatory graduation exam is their law is more critical and more oppressive than the other 25 states. For example, Pennsylvania is the only state of the 26 with mandatory graduation exam criteria that mandates that the score on the final exam, which is going to be called the Keystone exam, the Keystone exam score must represent 33% of the child's final grade in that class. Let me say that again. Pennsylvania is the only state that mandates that the grade on the Keystone graduation exam represent 33% of the child's grade in that course, their final grade in that course. Let me give you an example of how this is going to negatively impact black boys. Let's say I have a 75 in biology. I have a C average. I take the Keystone exam and I fail it. That failing score gets averaged into my 75, and now I fail for the year when I should have had a C. What's the difference? The Keystone exam is testing our children on information that they ain't been taught. In other words, black children are going to be penalized because their teachers and school districts are not properly preparing them for this test. If we're going to penalize children by not giving them a diploma, why are we not penalizing the teachers for not properly educating? Why are we not penalizing the superintendents for not properly educating? Why isn't there some sort of penalty for those who are responsible for supervising the education of black children? Why does the total weight of the failure fall on the shoulders of the most vulnerable in the process, that being black children? It gets worse. According to the Keystone Exam law, a child who scores below basic on any of the 10 Keystone exams, and there's going to be 10, if you score below basic, your score will automatically be converted into a 0, and that 0 is what's going to be averaged into that child's final grade for that class. And I hope you don't think I'm making this up. Let me give you an example. I have a 80 in my language arts class. I get a 59 on my Keystone exam. That's failing. It's below basic. It's a 59. If you average that 59 in with my 80, I'll probably still pass with a low C, high D. But because the Keystone exam mandates that my below basic score automatically becomes a 0, when you average that 0 in as 33% of my grade in language arts, which was an 80, but now the 0, which I did not earn because I had a 59, but it must become a 0 before it gets averaged in. That 0 gets averaged in as 33% of my grade. So you take 80% with a 0, and now I have a 40 or below. I failed for the year. I want you to see how institutional racism in the form of the tests, and tests are the #1 form of academic institutional racism. Let me make that clear. There is no better way to discriminate against black children than giving them a test that includes information that we know they were not prepared for. So in the areas of algebra and biology and geometry and language arts and civics and world history and American government, make sure your child is ready to pass them tests. Pennsylvania is building 4 new prisons as we speak. 4 new prisons in Pennsylvania to be completed by 2013. The Keystone exam takes effect in 2015. The prisons have to be done by the time this year's 7th graders get to 9th grade, so when they start dropping out, the state of Pennsylvania will be ready to catch them in a prison bed.